Wide, Vancouver. Pre-game, post-game, every game presented by Bodog. Free casino games and sports odds. It's time to play at Bodog.net. JPat and Wadden here with you. And JPat, you're out at UBC today, taking in the Canucks as they go through a couple of groups now, as we've seen two groups split up between those that are left here in training camp. It looks to be that one group perhaps is the NHL group and one group is the AHL group, but you're telling me perhaps I shouldn't be reading too much into that.
Well, first things first, as a North Shore resident, let me say, if I had a vote, if the Canucks were moving off campus from Rogers Arena for practice, it would not be UBC. I'm all team 8 rinks coming from the North Shore, but they don't ask me. They don't consult me on these types of matters. So they're setting up shop out at UBC, I think, for the remainder of the week, aside from game day Thursday when they next play. So a couple of practice days here. And yeah, I mean, they made the cuts on Monday, the first round of cuts. No surprises really there. Yeah. A couple of guys sent to Abbotsford and others, the junior eligible guys, sent back to their junior team. So, they're getting down in numbers, and obviously no Brock Boeser and no Ilya Mikheyev at practice, and Tyler Myers was sick, so he wasn't available. Not COVID, Bruce was quick to point out. So Myers shouldn't be out too long, and then Travis Dermott left practice midway through. We can talk a little bit more about that, but just to your two groups, the big boys, for the most part, with a couple of notable additions. And when I say that, I think Linus Karlsson getting a chance to skate with that NHL group, Nils also getting a chance to skate with the big league group, and Jack Rathbone, where he thinks he belongs, and certainly looked the part the other night on Sunday in the preseason opener. And there was Rathbone at practice today, again, skating with Luke Shen and getting a chance on the second power play unit as well. So, that's a boost. That has to be a boost to Jack Rathbone's confidence. When I look at who wasn't in the so-called NHL group, and the big boys went out first and the other group skated second, Will Lockwood, he was in the second group. Jet Wu in the second group. Christian Wolanin, Wyatt Kalynuk. Some of these guys that probably want to think that they should be with the other group, but they weren't. And when I asked Bruce Boudreau if this is the way it's going to be, he was quick to shoot that down and said, we just had to divide into two groups, manageable numbers now to start to put our work in place. But as far as exhibition games go, there will be some drawing from that second group. So it's not like that's the end of the line for Will Lockwood. We're not going to see him again. I would imagine that Lockwood will get another opportunity in the preseason, and probably the same for a guy like Jet Wu. What I thought was kind of curious, because Ty Young, the Prince George Cougar goaltender, got sent back to junior. He was among the first round of cuts. So they're down to 5 goalies now in camp. Thatcher Demko went out early at UBC, and it was just Demko working with Ian Clark, the Abbotsford goaltender coach, and I can't remember who. I think it was one of the Abbotsford coaching staff was the shooter. And man, they put in a session. Demko was working hard. So when practice began, Demko came off the ice for a while, and then it was Spencer Martin. And this is where it got a little interesting to me. Artur Silovs was skating and, taking in reps with the big boy group, leaving your boy, Colin Delia, and Mikey DiPietro with that AHL group. So again, just looking for little things that you can glean from a practice after the first preseason game, because Monday was a full team day off. And I just thought, the old tip of the cap, I suppose, to Rathbone, Karlsson, Amon, Silovs getting the opportunity to skate with that NHL group out at UBC.
Now, Delia is just my boy because I struggle to pronounce his last name. I don't know why. It's not even that hard. I got out Rick Dollywall with it all of a sudden. But Silovs is really my guy. You know that. I think he's impressed me, and I can see why perhaps he is with that group. Now, let's not bury the lead here, though, all right? Yes. Because we did get the updates on what's happening with Ilya Mikheyev, Brock Boeser. That is not Bruce Boeser. Brock Boeser. Here's Bruce with the updates.
Mikheyev has a lower body injury, and it'll be week to week.
So what can you tell us about Brock and sort of the nature of how that happened?
Nobody knows how it happened, but he'll start skating with us in a couple days, maybe even as close as tomorrow.
Nobody knows how it happened. I mean,
yeah.
I just don't know how that flies, right? Really? Nobody? Not even Brock himself? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a surprise to me, but so was that very tail end of the answer that Boeser's going to be skating with them again soon,
Yes.
maybe as early as tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
there was a ton of doom and gloom on Monday, and crappy news for Boeser, obviously, but the silver lining, as we outlined in our YouTube special. If you missed that, you got to go back and watch it. But we'll talk more about YouTube coming up here. But the fact that it happened this early in preseason, 3 to 4 weeks, if Boeser, a hand injury, you'd think he should be able to skate and keep his conditioning up and all that kind of stuff so that when he gets the green light, the recovery and the return to the lineup shouldn't take too long. So I think that's a promising development still, though, for Brock Boeser to have to start essentially the preseason, hand surgery. But that is curious. And as we pointed out, we were there on Saturday in Whistler. Like, he skated with his group, but then when the scrimmage began, he was nowhere to be seen. And somewhere along the line, something significant enough happened that he required surgery. So, Bruce wasn't letting on a whole lot there. And as for Mikheyev, we watched the video. We were at the game the other night. It was hard to tell. He got hit hard and left the game. Weren't really sure. So lower body, again, don't know the full extent or the full nature of the injury. But I kind of wondered if he braced himself. He put his hand down. I thought maybe he had injured a wrist or something. But we'll go with the team word that it's lower body week to week. And again, that timeline sort of matches up that if it all goes well, hopefully Ilya Mikheyev is ready for the start of the regular season.
All right, so they're down a couple of top 6 forwards. Here's the head coach on losing those 2.
Well, obviously, when you don't have 2 of your top 6 guys there, you're shuffling the lines a bit. But it's one great reason to have some depth. Injuries are going to happen. That's the nature of the beast. So, when one guy goes down, another guy's got to step up. If they're good enough, they'll make it tough on anybody that returns. That's the way I would look at it if I was a player. What a great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know the names that are going to be able to get that opportunity, in particular, Nils Hoglander. But so they mixed up the lines today. What did you see in that top 6 group?
Yeah, well, let's just run through the lines the way that they skated. And again, they had extra bodies on the ice, so there were some guys that swapped in and out. But the way that they set up, Connor Garland takes Boeser's spot. So it was Garland on the right side. And remember, he started camp over on the left, and he was playing with Horvat and Podkolzin, and they played well the other night. He had the goal in the exhibition game, but Connor Garland back to his natural spot. He's on the right side with Miller and Pearson. Curtis Lazar got the bump without Garland. Lazar was on the right wing with Horvat and Podkolzin. Phil DiGiuseppe, who had the strong training camp last year, he was skating with Jason Dickinson and Dakota Joshua. Nils Alman was the extra on that line. And then you had Elias Pettersson, who started the other night with the Russians. Mikheyev's out, and that's where Hoglander slotted in. Nils Hoglander was on the right wing there. Kuzmenko over on the left side. And Linus Karlsson was the extra, and he was wearing the blue jerseys along with those other 3 guys. And I thought, this, when I talked about tip of the cap for some of these young guys, Linus Karlsson, getting an opportunity to swap in and out with Hoglander a little bit there. Looked good in Penticton, didn't look out of place up in Whistler. And here he is now, not just practicing, but online with Elias Pettersson at times, but also he was an extra forward and swapping in and out on the second power play unit. So, I think it tells you that the Canucks have liked what they've seen so far from Linus Karlsson. Now, there's a long way to go. We're just the split squad games in. There's still the 5 preseason games remaining. I'm not anticipating that he's going to make this team, but these are all, good steps in the right direction for Linus Karlsson. The funny moment came when they started to do power play work, and Karlsson had been wearing a blue jersey the whole practice, and they needed him to swap colors so that he matched his power play guys. And I don't know, they didn't seem to have I guess he was wearing white during practice and they needed a blue. And all of a sudden, one of the training staff guys comes running from the locker room, and they've got Lucas Jasuk's number 62. Karlsson's been 94 from Penticton through camp and the other night in the game he played. So I don't know. They're going to have to find him a blue practice jersey. So Lucas Jasuk, at least in spirit, was out there during Canucks practice at UBC.
All right. So a bit of a struggle last year for Nils Hoglander. Seems like he's having himself a good camp so far. And the head coach knows that this is an opportunity for the young man.
I mean, that's the way I would look at it if I were him. For a lot of these guys that were sort of on the bubble of a top 6, top 9 forward is here. I've got my chance now. I'm going to make the best of it. So, we'll see what everybody's made of.
And you know that Nils Hoglander, when he saw that the additions that they made over the offseason, he probably saw the writing on the wall. Like, I gotta make the most of my summer here. I gotta make sure I show up at this camp. I gotta prove to these guys that I still can be a good part of this team.
Yeah, and it certainly sounds like, he was among the top end guys in the fitness testing that came out over the weekend up in Whistler. Mm-hmm. So, if there was any indication ahead of camp that he wasn't going to have a top 9 role and he was going to start on essentially the 5th line, no pouting from this guy. He doesn't say much. I think there's still a battle with a full grasp of English, at least to do media. He tries, but he just doesn't say a lot. But he's letting his actions speak for themselves. And he was good through the first couple of days up in Whistler. Now, we did the post-game pod on Sunday. We readily admitted we didn't see what happened at the Saddle Dome. We weren't watching that game. We were focused on what went on at Rogers Arena. So he was part of the traveling group, one of the few veterans that was in the lineup that night. But now with this injury and the fact that he was skating alongside Elias Pettersson, interesting to see. I would have to think Miller and Pearson didn't play in either of the games on Sunday. You got to think that they're going to play on Thursday.
Yeah.
And so Garland would get an opportunity, I would imagine, starting on Thursday, unless Bruce wants to tinker. They've got another day of practice. But the whole thing a week ago from Bruce was no experimentation, no tinkering. Let's get down to the task at hand here. So I would think you'd see Miller, Pearson, and Garland on Thursday at home against the Seattle Kraken, and then we'll see where the chips fall and who else rounds out the lineup. But for Nils Hoglander, if he had to be patient, he was. It didn't take too long. And then to find himself skating alongside Elias Pettersson, who, again, even through these practices, the guy just looks dialed. Like he looks like he recognizes how much missing camp and the preseason hurt him last year. And another really solid workmanlike practice session, I thought, from EP40. And he's got Hoglander on the one side and now Kuzmenko on the other. So, they'll have to figure out a little chemistry on their own, but that's a great landing spot for Nils Hoglander.
Okay, so we got 2 top 6 forwards that are out right now, but also Travis Dermott had to leave practice today. Apparently he was feeling woozy, and Bruce told him to take the rest of the day off. Also, Tyler Myers was sick, non-COVID, but not well enough to practice today. So then down a couple of defensemen as well. What did we see in terms of the pairing? And, perhaps give us an update on, at least on Dermott.
Yeah, the Dermott thing was strange because I didn't see him get hit. Now, maybe I was just watching the other end of the ice. Whatever the case, he came to the bench on his own, like skated off the ice slowly, sat on the bench. And again, this is one of the small sheets out at UBC, and the media was standing right up above. And so we had a great view as we looked down, and the medical staff came over and checked him out. And like you could tell he was in some real distress. And again, I'm not sure the origin of it all, but it didn't take long for a second staffer to come over. Woozy's a good word because he kind of looked like he was going to pass out. And all of a sudden, with one medical staffer on either side, they helped him walk to the locker room. Like he couldn't just get off the bench and go to the locker room, which was right behind the bench area on his own. So, Bruce didn't have much of an update post-practice, but let's hope that, it's just one of those things. And you never like to see a guy get medical attention during a practice session, especially this early into the season. So let's see where it goes. But without Tyler Myers, there's a trickle-down effect. And I don't imagine that Myers is going to be out long. It just sounded like he wasn't feeling well. Yeah. So Danny DeKeyser, who's been skating with Myers the entire camp, it was him and Poolman. It was Rathbone and Shen. It was Dermott with Kyle Burrows. And then, of course, OEL and Quinn Hughes. And that pairing sat out the other night. Hasn't seen game action yet. So another opportunity for DeKeyser to play alongside a tall, lanky, right shot guy in Poolman, where he's been playing with Tyler Myers. And I'm drawn to DeKeyser just because he's on a PTO and trying to see what the organization is seeing here and if there's enough. But boy, if Dermott's out for any length of time, that may open the door. So certainly not wishing that on Travis Dermott, but a situation worth monitoring. And if you're in Danny DeKeyser's skates, it could present an opportunity because Dermott, one of those guys that, even though he can play both sides, on the depth chart at least, lines up right now as a left-hander.
Yeah, it just seems like they're giving Danny DeKeyser every opportunity he can, and that leash seems to be a little bit long. We'll see what happens after this next preseason game. I don't think he really impressed too much in his first preseason game, but it's almost like they want to make it happen almost. And, whether he can keep it, the foot speed more than anything else to stay in the NHL is another thing. Speaking of foot speed, they got a bag skate today, I hear. Bruce just wanted to test the boys. So he gives them the bag skate, and he just wanted to see what their fitness level was at. Here is the head coach after that hard skate.
Well, I sprung a skate on them. They said that was tougher than the skate test, so I was glad of that. Yeah. So, we don't do that often, but I wanted to see how they did a really good job. Their fitness testing was beyond what I would have thought. This team in the summertime took it very serious, and they want to be a good team, and their fitness level was great. Nobody was a guy that you need to keep out here longer to get in shape. They were all great, and it showed in that test. Usually the fourth and fifth times you have one or two guys really dragging, and they were all staying up pretty well with each other and did a great job.
Okay, so I did see you tweet that he was a little bit upset with the group at one point.
He was.
Did that bag skate have anything to do with that, or was that just later on in the practice?
So this was the tail end of the second session. They had a full practice. They flooded the ice. They came back and they did special teams work. And as Bruce explained, it really was a focus on the power play, getting 2 power play units. But obviously, if you're running the power play, you got some guys penalty killing. He said tomorrow when they do special teams, the focus will be more on penalty killing. And he used JT Miller as an example, where Miller, of course, part of the top unit on the power play. He said tomorrow you'll see JT Miller over on the penalty kill side. And I guess they'll have some guys fill in on the power play. So the practice session was essentially broken up into 2 segments, and the skate came at the tail end of the day for these guys. So they had been out on the ice an awful lot with a little halftime break for a clean sheet of ice. And I think that there was some misunderstanding that a lot of times, and certainly under Travis Green, the famous 40 skate, it's multiple guys going at the same time. And here, Bruce wanted them to go in groups of 3. And they were all lined up on the goal line. And the first time he blew the whistle, a whole bunch of guys went. And that wasn't what he was looking for. And so he quickly blew the whistle. And that's when he screamed, "Wake the fuck up!" In Bruce Boudreau's voice. And, it kind of came out of nowhere. Because I thought it had been a pretty high-tempo practice. Training camp's been good. We haven't seen that from Bruce. But here he was cracking the whip. What surprised me, man, was just how long he made them skate. And you heard in the clip there where guys were saying it was tougher than the 40s. I was surprised just at the duration. There were a couple of times where I thought, all right, here's the natural end. He's going to blow his whistle and practice is going to be over. Nope. Just kept them going through. And I will say this, until the day I die, I can't get enough of the goalies that they're made to do skate as well. Hey. They do it at their own pace. And nobody's cracking the whip on them, but they're part of the team here. And so there's no, they don't get to exit stage left. And I just in full gear, these guys that are skating the lines. And it was, goal line, blue line, back to the goal line, up to center, stop, back to the goal line. And it just kept going and going in groups of 3. And, Kuzmenko, we've talked a lot about his fitness. He was feeling it. I'm not going to say he was struggling. I thought he did well to keep up, but in between, behind, he was at times leaning on the net and hunched over, and you could tell. And then when it finally ended, and Bruce said, "Yeah, go to center and stretch." Most guys are down on their hands and knees, sort of stretching out. Kuzmenko was flat on his back with his feet up in the air. I don't know if that's some sort of Russian cool down drill, but he was. I think he'll probably sleep well tonight because this was a pretty good test of fitness for all of them. But a guy like Tucker Pullman seemed to get through it well. And again, these are all baby steps for him, but these are steps in the right direction. But man, yeah, Bruce, he was making them work today.
No Olio levies in the corner?
There was none. No, nobody puked. Nobody setting up shop over in the corner. No, Kuzmenko was probably the guy that looked like he was feeling, and actually it was interesting. And, I have no idea what was said, but a couple of times you could see he was hunched over and veterans kind of went over and were tapping him on the butt. But I think they're also saying don't let the coach see that you're hurting here. And so generally after a teammate went over, he popped back up and got out of his hunch stance and it was heavy breathing, but they all were, it was a workout. It was a workout. And as Bruce said, this is, you got to see who can do it. And nobody stood out for the wrong reasons, but also you heard in the clip there, Bruce happy with the way that, these guys showed up for camp and that the testing has shown that.
Yeah, the goaltenders, though. I used to have to do those ball skates when I was a kid, and I hated doing them. And the thing is, too, they used to say to us that the goalie is supposed to be the best skater on the team. I think that was absolute bullshit. I hated when they said that to us. Anyway, I feel for the goalies. All right, so what do we got going on then in terms of tomorrow? Are they going to be back out at UBC? What's the schedule?
Yeah, so I got two other things that I just want to throw in here really quickly. One is I thought it was fascinating, and this is something that I'm going to be watching closely as the season unfolds here. Daniel Sabine on the ice full, through the entire both sessions, and Henrik watched the early part of the practice from above with the rest of the management group, and then when it came down to special teams and power play, oh, look at that. Henrik put on the skates. He was out there too. So, we're still trying to figure out the full defined role for Daniel and Henrik in player development. And this was primarily an NHL group, but I think it's great. You've got these resources. These guys are going into the Hall of Fame in 6 weeks. Why not put them to work? So, but it was just interesting because we always talk about them as a single entity, but not today. Daniel was out there for the duration and Henrik just joined the group for the special teams part. The other thing, and I noticed this in Whistler, and again today, this is just a practice day, a pretty standard practice day. And Rachel Dory is manning a video camera and recording everything that went on at Whistler, the practices, the scrimmages. I
saw that.
And here today, got the video gear out again. And it just I've never seen this from Canucks management group in the past. This is a late September practice, and yet they're documenting it, and you wonder, what's she looking for? Is she the one that's combing over the video? Is somebody else in the organization? I'll have to do a little digging there to find out, but I think that's fascinating that all these bodies in the front office now, and clearly this is part of the task for Rachel Dory and her role from the analytics department, working with the coaching staff and trying to find some harmony there. But they're breaking down film of practices this early in the proceedings.
Not a game. Not a game.
Practice. Mm-hmm. So I think that's it from whatever today was, Tuesday. As for the rest of the week, yes, apparently they're back at UBC. Renovations and construction continuing at Rogers Arena. It'll be available on game days as it was on Sunday. So they'll have a morning skate at the Rog on Thursday, but if they practice on Friday, I think they will be back out at UBC once again. So I guess I'll be putting in the mileage and getting in the car because that's the job. So I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but I would much prefer 8 rinks. So, when Alvin and
that's how you really feel about UBC there.
Yeah, when they're sitting around the front office listening to the pod here, just guys.
Yeah. Hey guys, make note. Mm-hmm.
Oh, can I throw this? I have to throw this in as well because we didn't get this on the post-game pod on Sunday, but pat on the back for us as residents of the city of Vancouver. So we're walking to the media entrance on Sunday, early start, sun is shining. It was a glorious day in Vancouver. And we encountered a couple of, I don't know if they were French. I probably should have figured it out. I want to say French tourists. They had a pretty solid accent, a couple of young women. And they looked troubled. And then they approached. And, that's nothing new to Wadden. Women are approaching him all the time. But one of them's got the phone out. And she is kind of looking. And she's like, can you help? I'm not going to do the French accent. How do we get into the hockey game? And I said, do you have tickets? And she said, oh, yeah. And then she looks up. And the problem was they were trying to get into BC Place Stadium. And of course, Rogers Arena right there. And no, they had no eye on Rogers Arena. The whole focus was on getting into BC Place for the hockey game. So
wanted to doing our Heritage Classic.
Doing our civic duty to help the tourists. We pointed them in the right direction. And I hope they got in. I hope they enjoyed the hockey game. But, friendly folks at Rink Wide, always here to lend a helping hand.
JPat, just a man of the people. Rink Wide is presented by Bodog. Make a play at Canada's choice for free casino games, sports odds, and poker strategies. I got some Bodog lines for you, some
Hit me.
props, some futures here, JPat. I like this one actually. And honestly, I believe it's the third lowest in terms of betting for the Jack Adams. Bruce Boudreau at plus 1,800. I mean, maybe a little sprinkle there, some value. Of course, he won the Jack Adams before back in 07, 08. Perhaps Brucey getting a second this year. What do you think?
Didn't win the sexiest head coach apparently in the National Hockey League. I saw that.
No. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Jay Woodcroft is really. I guess I haven't paid a whole lot of attention there. And Daryl Sutter was second. Daryl Sutter was second, which kind of throws the whole thing out of whack. Bruce was a solid 16. I mean, right in the middle of the pack. But he was one behind Jared Bednar, who looks like a handsome enough guy.
Yeah,
Stanley Cup champ. So Bruce keeping some pretty good company. Peter Laviolette, how about that? And in the press release for this, I think it was gaming.com. In the press release, Peter Laviolette, the ugliest head coach in the National Hockey League.
Peter Laviolette doesn't get a lot of love around the National Hockey League, but Jay Woodcroft is the most handsome. Really?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, but what do you think? Plus 1,800, which I think that's a good little sprinkle you could do there for Bruce Boudreau. I mean, listen, if the Canucks are able to get into the playoffs, say they get the third spot in the Pacific, I bet you Boudreau is in that final for the Jack Adams.
No, I think you're right. I think there's some value there. And again, if they play anywhere close to the way that they did under him for 57 games, then you'd have to think, if they post a 100-plus point season under Bruce Boudreau, then he's going to get some love. He will. How could he not get some votes? So, yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, what is he? Yeah, he's the third lowest odds amongst all the coaches for the Jack Adams there. So pretty interesting. This one, not a whole lot of value in these two. Elias Pettersson over under 31.5 goals. It's minus 115, whichever way you're going. And of course, 32 was his career high last year. So if you think he's going to be able to top that or be under it, sets at minus 115. So not a whole lot of value there. And the Canucks season point total over under 92.5 at minus 115. Either way you go as well. And of course, 92 points last year, which was 5 points shy of the second wild card, 7 points shy of that third spot in the Pacific. I think if I was going to go Pettersson, I'm going to take the over on that one. I think he will be able to reach over 32 goals or to the 32 goal mark at least. So over 31.5. I also like the Canucks to top the 92.5 points. I don't know if it's going to be enough to get them into the postseason, but I think they'll be able to top that 92.5.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think The Athletic also had them pegged right around that number in their season preview this week. So that's kind of what the hockey world at large is thinking when they look at the Vancouver Canucks and their prospects. Yeah, I guess I want to believe that there is going to be some improvement in a full season under Bruce Boudreau, and as Pettersson and Hughes continue to get better, and I still think Thatcher Demko can get better. So I think I jump on the over on that one. And Pettersson, yeah, that's kind of the ballpark, I guess. I mean, unless the second half of last season is a true indication of, him taking a massive leap to superstardom, I kind of look at him as 30 goals, 50 assists, 80 points. That's how, in my mind, he gets to a point a game. So, I'll go along for the ride. I'll take the over there. But I don't think he's going to be a 40-40 guy. I think he would be closer to 30-50 to get to his 80 points.
Yeah, so head over to Bodog and place your bets there. And lastly, we got a pregame that we're going to debut now. It's going to start on Thursday as the Canucks get set to face the Seattle Kraken. We have been promoting that it's going to be on YouTube. You can see it on our social media now. We got our video out there. Also head over to YouTube and check it out. We do have some exclusive content that we've put out on YouTube this week only. We'll be doing that throughout the year, but pretty excited about this, JPat. These bite-sized pre-games that we're going to be doing for people exclusively on YouTube, just sort of wet the palate as you go into the game.
Yeah, I mean, we know that people are busy, especially on game days, and you're trying to cram in as much content as you can. So it won't be a full podcast the way we do on the post games or even on the off days, but we'll give you everything you need to know. I'll get down to the rink. We'll talk to the players, hear from the coach, get the lineups, injury updates, all those types of things. And then we will push out a YouTube exclusive pregame show. So when we've talked about pregame, postgame, every game, that's where it comes from. And if you missed it on Monday, we now have the ability, and this is the beauty of the times we live in. The Boeser news comes out, we weren't planning to record a podcast on Monday because we had done one late Sunday after the hockey game. We fired up the old YouTuber and away we went. And if you missed that, don't miss another one. Make sure that you're following us on our YouTube channel because it's all about content and content delivery directly to you. So the podcast is going to continue throughout the season. We'll do post-game podcasts. We'll do off-day podcasts. But there's also this element of YouTube that we're branching out to. And so the pregame will be served up as quickly as we can once we glean the information necessary to put the pregame podcast out, but also on special occasions, injuries, trades, player movement, coaching movement, whatever. We have the ability now to record and push out content pretty quickly. And we did that yesterday with the update on Brock Boeser needing the hand surgery. So, make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of our social channels at Rink Wide Podcast.
Yeah, and if you're like me and you're at home working, I always throw the YouTube on. We'll have our full episodes of our podcast on YouTube as well, so you can just sit there and listen along with us. Of course, we always take Ask JPats, and we want you guys to just flood them, get them in. Anything comes to mind you want to ask JPat about it, hit us up. Great Clips inbox, 778-402-9680. And if you're new to the podcast, as soon as you text into that inbox, you get into the exclusive Go Goat Sports club, inbox club, where we give away all kinds of different prizes on there. Lastly, JPat, as we talk about Go Goat Sports, our partners over there at Sekeres and Price had a pretty interesting poll question today. I liked this question. I want to pick your brain about it before we put a bow on this. Do the Canucks have a franchise player? Yes or no? And if it is yes, who do you think it is?
Well, certainly Quinn Hughes at some level qualifies. Smashed the franchise mark for single season points by a defenseman. He's done something that nobody else in franchise history has done. I think by very definition, that makes Quinn Hughes a franchise defenseman, a franchise player. Now, if we're comparing him with the other elites in the league or the greats of the game, he's still got some work to do. But, puck moving, high scoring defenseman, this is just a category the Canucks have been passengers in basically for half a century. So to have Quinn Hughes here on the scene doing Quinn Hughes things, in my mind, yes, he's a franchise player. And I would say too, if you've got a goalie that's getting Vezina votes, like we see the value of goaltending. You see the teams that have it and the teams that don't. And the Canucks have no issues whatsoever between the pipes. And again, Spencer Knight, who's barely played in this league, getting himself a 3-year contract with some significant dollars. And here we've got Thatcher Demko, 4 more years at $5 million, and he's getting Vezina love already.
Deal.
I think it shows the value of that. So I would say those two, and then the hope would be that Elias Pettersson does, ride that superstardom wave that he showed the flashes of early, and then again late last season. So I'm not putting him in that category yet, but yeah, I would say yes. But particularly just based on the position he plays, the history the hockey club has had, I would say Quinn Hughes is a franchise player.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And I put this out on Twitter. I said, listen, would you consider trading any of the Canucks? Or who would you never consider that is trading on the Canucks? And to me, that's Quinn Hughes. You just would, there isn't a deal out there unless it, involves maybe Cale Makar that I would move Quinn Hughes. Obviously you're not going to be trading him for McDavid or Matthews or anyone like that.
Right.
I'm saying that in terms of solid defenseman, he's right there. Like you just do not move him. Goaltending, I'd argue, can be finicky at times. And we've seen guys fall off a cliff pretty quickly, but Thatcher Demko doesn't seem to be that guy. So I'll agree with you. I would say franchise 1 and 1A, 1B player would be Quinn Hughes and Thatcher Demko. And I'll tell you what, I don't give a tip of the cap to the Benning regime very often. You have to for the Thatcher Demko contract. It might be one of the best value contracts in the NHL. And you're absolutely right. If he's getting Vezina votes, how can you argue that he wouldn't be a franchise player for you? JPat, you're a franchise player for us here at Rink Wide. You know that as well.
Thanks. That means the world to me. What also means the world is all the feedback. We talked about those Ask JPats. Yeah, let's get them going here, make it a regular thing. We'll continue to remind, but love the questions, love the feedback. And I just want to, this isn't an Ask JPat, but this came to my personal Instagram account. Dylan reached out at JPat Vancouver, by the way. And this was after the game on Sunday, and he said, fun fact, my 15-year-old can't go to sleep without listening to Rink Wide. Reminds me of sports talk days. That's pretty heady
Love
company.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know his son's name, but sounds like we've got a listener there. So love the support. Thanks for that. And thanks to Dylan for reaching out with the message.
Absolutely. Hit us up slide into the DMs if you want to at any of our Instagram accounts, and of course at Rink Wide Podcast. And do subscribe to that YouTube channel, as we are trying to get as much content as we can out to you guys this year. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Vancouver Podcast, presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Watt, and remember, Rink Wide is the show that always scores.